We'll be going over the IRS Interactive Tax Assistant tool that helps people determine whether or not their tip income is taxable. So, generally speaking, uh, the IRS expects people, every taxpayer, to report income regardless of the source or how you earned it. So you can walk through this tax tool. You'll need a couple of things. You'll need your Form W-2 in case there were any tips reported on that. You'll also need the amount of tips that you received during the year. So if you had tip income from more than one employer, or if you received tips as a self-employed individual in addition to tips as an employee, then you would need to run this tool separately for each different employer. So the IRS estimates that this should take about 10 minutes to walk through the form. Let's go ahead and begin. So here's the part where we determine which year we're going to be talking about. At the time of this recording, the most recent tax year that had concluded was 2022. So we're going to use that as our proxy. So first question, did you receive tip income as an employee, a railroad employee subject to the Railroad Retirement Tax Act, or a self-employed person? So let's walk through and say we received tips as an employee. What type of tip income did you receive? So if you click the blue link, it says all tips you receive are income and subject to federal income tax. You must include in gross income all direct tips, all charge tips that were paid to you by your employer, and your share of any tips that you receive under a tip splitting or a tip pooling arrangement. So the value of non-cash tips, like tickets, passes, other valuable items, that's also considered income and subject to income tax. So let's take a look at it. Did you receive cash, which would include check, credit, and debit card? Did you receive non-cash, or did you receive both? Let's stick to cash for right now. Did you report all of your cash tips to your employer? Let's select no, just not that I expect any person to actually answer this way, but maybe you didn't report tips to your employer and you'd like to. So in any month for which you did not report tips, was your income from cash tips $20 or more? This is kind of the threshold that the IRS has for reporting tips to your employer. So if your tip income in a month or part of a month was less than $20, then you don't need to report that to your employer. So you also don't report the value of any non-cash tips to your employer. You wouldn't pay Social Security, Medicare, which are also known as FICA tax. You don't need to pay retirement plan taxes on that. And you only need to report the tips that you receive and retain under a tip splitting arrangement. You don't need to report any tips that you would pass on to other employees, but you do need to report tips that you received from other employees. So let's say no. What form did you receive from your employer in 2022? So all of these are different types of W-2 forms. So let's select the traditional W-2. Most of these are variations based on the Virgin Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa. So let's select Form W-2. Did you have allocated tips in box 8 of your Form W-2? So let's see what allocated tips are. Oh, maybe not. Let's see if we can do this again. Nope. Okay, so apparently there's a little triangle that says we can't access that. Basically, certain large food and beverage establishments over a certain threshold of employees have to allocate and make sure that a certain percentage of their income, gross income, is allocated to employees. So if they do this, if you worked at a big box, like Applebee's or Chili's, where you would normally expect tip income, but um, you know, it's a larger establishment, not necessarily a smaller or closely held restaurant, then you may have allocated tips that your employer set aside for each employee, and that would be in box 8 of your Form W-2. So, does the Form W-2 that you received show an amount in box 12, either code A or code B for uncollected taxes? So let's say no. So in this case, your tip income is taxable, and then all tips would be reported on the wages line of your tax return. So, and then it walks you through, what you would use you need to be able to document your tip income throughout the year. And we do have articles on our website, which we'll put links to in the show notes to kind of help walk you through that. So, let's go back and let's see what things might change if we change the entries to your Form W-2. So in this case, you would use Form 1040 or Form 1040 SR. You would file those. You would use IRS Form 4137 to report allocated tips. You would also report any uncollected Social Security and Medicare taxes on Schedule 2. And you would only add to the box and the amount in box 1 the tips that you did not report to your employer, which would also include any allocated tips. So let's go back one last time and see what would happen if you change this to that you received $20 or more in tips in a month. So in this case, you would use Form 4137 to show cash tips of $20 or more per month that you did not report. You would add to the amount in box 1 just the tips that you did not report. You would also report the uncollected Social Security and Medicare taxes on Schedule 2. You must report tips to your employer, and then there are additional references to Forms 4070 and 4070A on how you would report and keep records of your tax tips. Or you may give your employer a statement with certain information such as your name, address, social security number, the employer's name, address, and business name, the months or periods in which you receive tips, and then the total amount of tips. So you're required to give your employer a monthly report. And if you don't report tip income, then you may be subject to a penalty that's equal to 50% of the total FICA taxes that you would owe on the tips that you did not report. That's on top of the taxes that you would owe. So you can show reasonable cause to get out of that penalty. You would have to explain that on your tax return. So that's, we can walk through additional scenarios on this interactive tax assistant, but it's probably good enough right here. That's all we have for this video. We do have several articles on the forms that we mentioned in this video, and you can find those articles on our website. If you go to teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in the IRS form that you're interested in, or if you click one of the links in our show notes, it'll take you straight to an article so you can learn a little bit more about that. So we'll put links to the articles and the videos that we've produced in the show notes. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. And if you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have any questions, comments, or if there's a topic that you'd like me to create a video on, please let us know in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.